Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new episode of the X Button. I am one of your hosts, Alejandro, and with me it's the light bluish.
Paul, hey everybody, how's it going?
Yeah, I'm always focusing on the shirt to sometimes
It
describe you.
seems to be, yeah. I This is my outdoor man shirt.
Yes.
It looks very blue collar office today, but it is actually, one of those nice ones you get to wear outside because it feels really good outside today for us.
Yes. Well, it's fall, right? It,
It is technically what the second day of fall.
mm-hmm. No, I
But
think it's
yeah, so
today. Today is the
is
day
it?
of fall. Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah. So, welcome to fall, everybody. We have all the fun things like hurricanes, but also pumpkins sometimes.
Oh, yeah. For all the basic, all the basicness flying around. Yeah. I will say though, yeah, I like making fun of the pumpkin spice latte and the basicness that entails. But I'll tell you, pumpkin spice latte rules. I love that taste.
They do hit very well. Better than what I would call peppermint
Oh yeah,
flavor things. I'm saying
peppermint.
that while I'm looking at my wife directly, um, telling her that I say at least pumpkin spice is way better, and we
Yeah.
can both agree on that.
Oh yeah. Does she like pumpkin spice or
She
is she
likes
more?
all of them,
All
but
right.
I she just brought me like it was it apple cider, apple crisp coffee earlier today. That's what I was just finishing up before we started recording,
Yeah.
and it was nice. It was very crisp. I agree.
That does feel nice though. But
Yeah,
can you believe it's fall already? We
I
mentioned it
can't.
in our chat. It's like this year is like simultaneously the slowest and fastest year ever. Last year was the slowest hell.
There's always something happening in this wild world we call 2021. That's for sure.
Yeah. But I would say like that's the thing. Like to me, 2021 doesn't feel like anything. Like, like 2020 was 2020. There just was something about it that it was like there was an aura to that year. This year just kind of feels like it is. There's like no definition to it. It's
This
like,
is this is that post trauma depression year. That's what this is.
oh, sure is. With that depression, I do
It's a
feel that.
lot.
So Paul, like then 2022 will be here in like 3 months. And we're still gonna be in the middle of this nonsense. Because I was just talking with my dad about it. It's like the Spanish flu lasted 40 years. And we were and kind of like it was funny. We were just chatting about it, how he loves studying history.
Hmm.
Like he loves like how they say like history likes to repeat itself.
Yeah.
And it was so funny that back in May, he was kind of because my dad's a pastor, he kept mentioning, if you all think that we're about to get out of this, which everyone started thinking by May, it was like, it feels like there's a way out. Just beware. Worse things can happen. And what did happen? Delta. so, so it's like, yeah, I just want to time trial when this is over now. I'm,
Fortunately, we're all here as an escape from all those
yes,
things.
it
You don't
is.
have to worry about that here.
Exactly. We can always escape for a few hours. And that's kind of the thing. Like we're just talking about it. We may just throw it out there as like kind of what we're planning with the show. With Paul, we were thinking how usually our shows like they're all encompassing. So we talk about what we've been playing, what are the news of the week, depending on when we record. Sometimes it's fortuitous, sometimes big things happen right after we record, which can really make my hair want to tear my hair out sometimes. Like something that's gonna happen tomorrow from when we record. And we just reintroduced the topic, which you're also doing.
Yep.
And with you, we've been discussing about maybe splitting the show in two, like having a section of the show that is the news, be its own thing earlier in the week or somewhere in the week, and then us doing both what we've been playing and the topic in a different week. Well, no, not week, at a different day in
Different
the
day.
same way.
Yeah.
And that way is like they will become shorter episodes, which I would assume for some people that would be more appealing than the monsters sometimes that are like 1 hour and 30 or 1 hour and 40, which today maybe, who knows. But we're just kind of spitballing. And for everyone that listens to us, just know that if you then start seeing multiple things being posted in the feeds, it means that we're starting the experiment. Because also remember, we also have our reactions initiative, which we may also change because our friend Zach reminded us he had amazing names that we for some reason didn't even see. And
Or Zach, we just We he got Mike Wazowski in that one.
Yeah, he absolutely got Mike Wazowski in that, but I'll ask him to do like mock-ups of, because you obviously kind of how you did the Reacts mock-up for
Yeah.
thumbnails. I'll ask him to do a few ones with the names that he suggested for us. But we'll also have that for whenever there's big news that happen in between when we do recordings, kind of like we mentioned that they're so big that we kind of have to talk about it or react to it in the moment.
Yeah.
Like for
And
example, yeah, just to not bury the lead. There's a Nintendo Direct tomorrow from when we're recording, and when this goes live, that Nintendo Direct may have already aired, and we may or may not do reacts based on availability. So, but
yes.
just
I'm thinking we might be able to get something to happen with that. I have to pick up my parents from the airport. That's the only reason.
mm-hmm,
But that's a little earlier. So
mm-hmm.
I'm thinking I should be able to get home with enough time for me to like get everything ready for us to live react possibly.
Yeah, and we know that redirects are notorious for being not too long, which I appreciate. So,
Which is really nice, knowing that it's only going to be about 40 minutes. But they said that it's all stuff that's supposed to be happening in winter. So I was like,
what else other than Metroid? So
I
we'll
mean, I
see.
don't know, but if they're going to have 40 minutes of it, it'll at least be a beautiful train wreck or something that'll surprise us. Who knows?
That's the thing. Nintendo riding high after their Nintendo Direct from E3, which
Yeah.
was an improvement over the Disasters Direct that they had in February after not having one for 500 plus days. You remember the one that ended with Splatoon 3 being revealed and Skyward Sword HD and all of
Yes.
that. Everyone was like, I don't think I have ever been more disappointed with the Direct. That's what some of the people were saying. So, but the 3 one was good. So we'll see. Will this be where we see Wind Waker or
I
Twilight Princess?
see
I
that's
doubt
that's
it.
immediately where my head went, where I was like, what if though? What if like because you and I both know that they're sitting on it.
Mhm.
So it's like, what if they decide to hit us with some
Yeah,
craziness?
too many reports already, like from
Yeah.
reliable sources mentioning that those games exist. That is like it's just a matter of time now. So,
Mhm.
but we'll see. Like, yeah, Nintendo Direct tomorrow. That's like the little PSA. If you see a reaction from us, like with also in that same day, Jay. If not, we'll talk about it when we talk about the news. Whenever we
We'll
start
cover it
doing, yeah,
eventually.
we'll definitely cover it. But yeah, definitely wanted to housekeep about some of the changes that we kind of want to do because it'll be better also for our work life balance that we have. And we also try to always to kind of work around not just you but also me. So
Yeah.
we'll see how that works. But yeah, just definitely wanted to put it out there instead of just kind of starting like that and be like, what is this? So there's your preamble. Paul, what have you been playing?
I briefly well, I went to finish all of Deathloop first of
Mhm.
all. So to get that out of the way, I re-downloaded and purchased finally Spider-Man Remastered.
Oh yeah, you're
So
welcome.
I was riding that high. And it was nice because since at least they changed Peter Parker's face, it's like some reason to watch the cutscenes again.
Mm-hmm.
And like I love the story, but after a while, like I just wanted to get back to the game.
Mm-hmm.
And I gotta say, I'm really glad they gave me the option to skip the puzzles because
That
I
was
get nothing
always
out
there.
of them.
That's
Oh
what
no,
that
yeah.
yeah, that was a better.
I just the fact that this game at all gave
Mhm.
you that option because whenever I beat it the first time,
You did all of
every
them
playthrough
manually
after
too.
that, I just skip. Let's get
Mhm.
back to the good stuff. And I'm really glad they knew what they were doing with that when they said, "Listen, guys, like we understand what you're really here for. You can just get this out of the way." So
It's
I'm just loving the heck out of it
it's why I
again.
always say Miles Morales is a better game, like game, because it removed a bunch of that BS.
Yeah,
That you
there's a
get.
lot that really slows down the pacing of 2018 Spider-Man, I think.
Now, Hero, not good question with the Spider-Man remaster thing with the new face. What do you think of that new face compared to the all shaggy looking one?
I think it fits less with who Peter Parker is in this stage of his life. Because he's supposed to be doing this for 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
He's supposed to have looked older. And at first, when I played the game in 2018, I was like, there's something a little weird with his whole, like, the way his mouth would move that looked even older than I think they were playing him, but it worked. And especially in those emotional scenes at the end sold me on the whole thing because whoever they had actually performing the face, I don't hear any of that, so you're good.
Do you hear
Um,
that?
I don't hear anything,
Okay,
so
good,
yeah,
good.
you're good. So yeah, it just blending that emotion, whoever they got to really do the face capture just crushed it. I haven't gotten to that point with the new Peter Parker, but something just doesn't look quite right. I don't know why they just kind of threw that in there. I kind of wish they had given us an option to just like pick who we wanted.
Mhm.
Um, I he just looks too much like Tom Holland.
Yeah.
And I don't appreciate it. That being said, he still conveys a really good amount of emotion.
Mhm.
He's fantastic with his facial movements and stuff. And since the voice is exactly the same, it doesn't really matter. And they matched all that anyway.
I
What are your
would
thoughts?
say, because I've also been playing Spider-Man Remastered before some big stuff came out this week, and just to try to clear up my hard drive, be like, I just want to get it out of the way. And
Yeah.
playing it is like, I want to look videos of the 2018 one. The new one emotes more. It may not seem like that because you have a memory of the old one,
Hmm.
but at least in cutscenes, like all characters have a little bit more nuances into some of the animations that you think it's like how you remember it, but it's actually better. It's kind of like, sometimes you be like, oh, this looks like it remember. Then you go back to something like, oh,
Yeah.
yeah, this is not how I remember it
Okay.
looking and all that. I will say though that when you're like moving as Peter Parker and you see his face, it looks worse there. He has like this shitting grin that is very unsettling when you just see him when you're like moving the sticks and look at his face. But in
Mhm.
cutscenes, it looks better. I've grown to like it more now, but yeah, if you're so used to the 2018 one, and I know that was like your favorite game,
Yeah.
that years are like that, it will take a bit of an adjustment. So what else, Paul?
I'm giving it a good shot though.
Mm-hmm.
I had also I think that was really everything in the first thing before our meet that we wanted
Mm-hmm.
to talk about today, which was I realize I've been pronouncing it wrong. Kana, Bridge of
So
Spirits.
it's Kana,
Um,
no, not
that's
Kina.
I
Yeah.
was listening to people talking in the story, and that's how they pronounced her, and that's
Oh
how she
yeah.
pronounced her own name. So that's when I was like, oh, I've been saying this wrong the whole time. But yes, Kana, Bridge of Spirits. What a breath of fresh air.
Oh my God.
Not
Yes.
to make any sort of puns with Breath of the Wild. We're not going to do that here. Um, I just watching people react to it. Um, I watched a couple of people play like the first hour of it here and there, and it's just the consensus being this like genuine surprise of, oh, this is good.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this is really nice.
Yeah,
Oh,
let's just set the stage. Like before that game came out, there were no reviews. The review embargo was until the game unlocked.
right.
So I was kind of chatting, be like in our group chat, being like, I'm really excited for this game just based on how it looks, but I'm very worried that the embargo is so late.
Me too.
Obviously, because it feels more this and last generation that became more obvious. Like there were less people doing launch day reviews like they used to do like in the 360 and PS3 era.
Hmm.
So whenever you see something be kind of like 2009 again, that the reviews would open right at midnight when you can go buy the game, that has become kind of like a stigma of like maybe it's not good because why are they hiding? They shouldn't have been afraid of hiding anything.
Somebody clarified that the reason they think that that was the case and they had an embargo for so long is because of how story heavy the game was. They didn't want spoilers to leak out too early.
I can,
So I was
yeah.
like, all right, because I mean, there's some heavy stuff that happens, at least in the first arc that I just finished. But I agree. I watched the skill up video and he said something really great. He said, I've never seen somebody undersell a game
This,
more than
these
Kana
guys.
and Bridge of Spirits. And it is gorgeous. It plays very well. There's an amazing level of polish on every action and environment. The fact that this is only a $40 game made by a first time indie studio that justifiably convince Sony to get this exclusive rights and all that. And like I can feel Sony opening up their checkbooks now and being like, what do you need? We will write you a blank check for a franchise of this stuff. And I really hope that the sales reflect that so that they can continue all their stuff. What were you gonna say?
Yeah, like I feel I'm putting out there right now. Game of the year so far. Keanu Reeves' Fear is like the best thing I played this year because I haven't been this enchanted with something since Ori and the Blind Forest in 2015. Like a synthesis of art, music, visuals, style, and passion. That's what Kina is from the very beginning. It enraptures you when you're like walking through those tunnels and lighting everything up. It's like there's just something so. Even watching just trailers, I think undersells it until you actually play it in front of your TV. They're like this game is magic. It's absolute magic, and this also adds to the list of games like God of War 2018 and Jedi Fallen Order. Of what are the kinds of games Alejandro likes? Let's put them all together: exploration, third-person combat, non-open, not a huge open world, but more of a hub,
A
wrapped
little
up in
tad of puzzles thrown in
yeah,
there.
puzzles thrown in there, and wrapped it all up in beautiful painting. That's what Kina is. And the fact that this is $40, astounding. This could
Good
have been
steal.
a 70. Yes, like this is the steal of the century almost. Just seeing I've never seen animation like in a game like this in a more cartoony way, and where you feel that small passion every single area. And those rots, those slushy, and those little
Oh,
animals.
the rot, yeah.
Oh my god, I love when you have you pressed the D-pad when you just sit and you get like commands
Yes.
and then
You
and
get little poses, they'll like gather around you and stuff. It's
like,
great.
that game makes me smile. Like at every point of that, I'm just like with such a huge grin because it reminds me so much. Like I don't know if it's because we're getting older, but I kind of what I've been mentioning. Most of this year, I've just been replaying stuff because there's barely been anything worth playing. And this game was like it feels like wrapping yourself in a cold blanket, like in a warm blanket,
Mm,
and just thinking and remembering
yeah.
like this is what gaming used to be. Because some of the reviews were throwing is like, oh yeah, this is like a PS2 game, like a PS2 platforming game being put in 2015 and 2021. And for some, that may seem like, oh, you're kind of like underselling. And I'm like, that seems like the best thing ever because that was my favorite era of gaming, the most non-cynical era of gaming.
Mm.
And
That's a good description, non-cynical, because there right after that phase was this huge dip into overly serious, overly
mhm,
gritty, and we lost that just childlike imagination adventure style games. And I mean, what did I tell you the just last week on our topic? One of the things that I wish would come back was casual adventure games. Lo and
lo and
behold,
behold,
Kena Bridge of Spirits comes out the next week, and just it's that Ratatouille scene where he's taking a bite of it and he flashes back to
literally
coming
how I
home.
felt. Literally how I felt.
That's
As this is how this felt.
oof. um man, I wish I could want to make the thumbnail of, of
You
that
bet. Yeah,
meme.
yeah.
That would
Now
be
that you know,
great.
you better make that thumbnail.
Oh man, I might have to. But yes, just the depth of everything going on, and I was really concerned about the amount of time it would take to beat the game. But I feel like I've sunk a good 2.5 days into it already, and I've only just finished that first arc. And I
Mhm.
think there's supposed to be like three major
Yeah.
locations.
And the thing is, they say that this is when they've been promoting this game, they're like, oh, yeah, this is a game that you can beat in a weekend. So
Mm.
it's not supposed to be that long. And that's okay.
But
I'm
like the
okay with
crazy
that.
thing is when they say you can beat that in a weekend, usually for me that's like a day and a half. But the
You've been
fact
playing
that
like that. And
yeah, but because you can go back to other areas and it's so easy to warp to spots where you're like, I kind of remember there was something that needed this power back there. And where you have other games that are so dense that you don't remember those individual moments. Like if Jedi Fallen Order didn't have an actual marker on your map, if all of those other games that we talked about last week and the week before didn't actually give you prompts, they're so large that you would get lost. But Kina is just small enough
And
in
just big enough.
scope and just big enough that it's so easy to jump from one area to the next because you're like, I remember that I had a thing over there. Let me go do that. It'll take me like 10 seconds to run back to this place and get a little something. And even though none of the stuff that you really collect matters that much, as far as like it just gives you currency for the hats, but it's just enough to get that little neuron activation brain go burr moment that gets me like, oh, look at the blue gems.
It's
Yes.
simple and satisfying. You don't feel manipulated. It
Yeah.
just feels right. That's the thing. Everything about this game just feels right.
Mhm.
It's the kind of game that we need more because these are the palate cleansers from the massive games that we get in between. I feel like this would have been like a great palate cleanser for you to get like after finishing a big game like Ghost of Tsushima last year. Those kinds of
Yeah.
games, kind of like how you
Mhm.
sometimes need to get both a big meal and then your dessert. This feels like that because it's kind of like what I've been saying with whatchamacallit. Sorry, I was just playing my computer. I forgot and I had not put in the charger. Um, I don't mind big games. I like my long games. When every game is a long game, that's when I hate it.
That's
So
the struggle. Yeah.
so yeah, this has hit right at the perfect spot because let's not forget like that's trending director's cut that comes out this Friday
Which
is
is
about to
a
come out.
chunky game.
Yeah, just
I
remembering what,
remember
yeah,
like
the original.
streamlining and it took me a good 50 something hours. I mean maybe that's a bit exaggerating,
I would
but
say 40. It's like a 40, 50
yeah,
hour game.
40. But I feel like I also stopped doing any side quests like about halfway through and just like burned the rest as fast as I could.
Let me guess
Um,
until by the time you reach the snowy mountain, that's when you stop.
yeah, that's when I was just like, get me there and get me home, and I am done. Because it was great, but it was also just so draining, which was like the point of the game. But also, they did almost too well at burning me out.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that I'm going to have a few more opportunities, and I feel like I've gotten a lot more versatile with stuff. So I feel like if I just get my hands on it again, plus the director's cut things that help
Mhm.
me, I should be able to create enough fun for myself to keep the game going for longer
Mhm.
and
Y-
enjoying it.
But yeah, that's why I say like Kina launching right now. Like if you need something to like hold you until a big game kind of like that, or maybe after that, Kina is perfect for that, especially at that
Absolutely.
price and at that size.
Mm.
It's like we always had like this chat with our friend PJ about how like he's so disenchanted about gaming being so focused on the super realistic, dark, blah 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 blah. This PS5 generation, I've realized that that's barely been a thing. It's all about more the style and art. Like even like a more photorealistic game from Sony, like Returnal.
Mm.
That isn't even photorealistic as it is more a homage to the Geiger alien stuff. And then even stuff like Ratchet and Clank, which is incredibly beautiful also. It's like in its very sci-fi aesthetic. But this is the Pixar magic that I always knew we would eventually get there.
I knew like we've truly reached the point where we can play Pixar movies, and I love that we've finally gotten to that point. I mean, people were throwing that around a lot in Kingdom Hearts 3 because the cutscenes in game were looking just as good, roughly, as the actual movies.
Like the Let
And
It
I
Go
think we've
moment.
yeah, where it was literally just the music video with random cuts to Sora, Donald, and Goofy going, "What is going on, guys?" And that was hilarious.
Oh,
But
this is fun.
I know I wanted to mention it because you mentioned PJ, and I love the guy as much as you do.
Mhm.
And it was really funny because he said, "Oh, I love Nintendo because Sony has been putting out the exact same game for the last several years." And I think I dropped receipts on exactly how many individual unique games, and I want to hear what his thoughts are on Kina.
Hmm.
because he hasn't mentioned any of it yet, and I
Hmm.
don't think he's planning on buying it until we mention him in the chat.
Hmm.
So we should try seeing like, dude, you gotta go check this out. And I dare him to say that it's like, oh, it's not enough, it's played out, it's not cool, and
Yeah,
that is gonna be that
that's
moment.
gonna be the moment when you know he's just a Nintendo fanboy.
Yeah.
That's like all you need to know. Like if something like this out Nintendo's Nintendo in like cuteness, in
Creativity,
creativity.
passionate.
Yeah, it happened with Astro's Playroom. Like
Yeah.
I played Astro's Playroom this year because that's when I finally got my PS5, and just the level of cuteness in that platformer and the inventiveness and just like the green inducing creativity in display, like out Nintendo's what even Nintendo did in Mario Odyssey,
Hmm.
like something like that. And you can look at this and final and make that argument other than if you're just so up in Nintendo's ass. I'll just say that if you're so up Nintendo's ass that you're stuck there, to not accept that everyone else right there is doing what Nintendo should do because they're the king of the family friendly thing. And
That's one thing. You can finish your thought, but I did want to mention on the family part after you're done.
no, that was it. Go for it.
Okay. Um, I think there is one thing, if I wanted to nitpick, that I'm not sure is everything about the game screams, this is what you let kids play and grow with through, get really obsessed with and love it and stick with it for like years and years. I just keep thinking back to your Sly Coopers, your Ratchet and Clank, your Banjo Kazooies, your Spyros,
Your Jack and
um,
Daxters.
and yeah, your Jack and Daxters, and then you get to the boss battles, and I struggled with a couple of those moments on normal difficulty, and like I'll get
They're
the
Dark
idea of
Souls. They're like
they
Dark Souls.
are so hard because those enemies hit so hard. They're really quick, and I don't know if like it just feels like there's a huge jump between the little enemies that you get at first, and you're like, okay, I can just mash this button and like I'm stun locking them with the regular basic attack, and then you get to your crazy end of first arc boss
Mhm.
fight, and I died a good 3 or 4 times on that one easily just because I wasn't taking it seriously until it showed up and just whooped me against a tree. Um, and I will say the satisfying feeling of guarding against some of those attacks just feels so good.
When you
Anyway,
hit the parry and then
yeah.
the
The
closes happen and you
parry.
push it.
There's like a small delay whenever I do that. It feels a little weird whenever you
Yeah.
parry because it's like a catch and
Mhm.
then the screen goes in and then the parry animation
it,
finishes.
it
It's a little
doesn't
weird.
have like obviously this game's not perfect. I would say that like the parry window, it's not as obvious like a game like God of War or even Jedi Fallen Order, where
Yeah,
there's a little
I'll
bit more
give
of like
that.
that specific window of when you can press the L1 button to do like that parry. It feels like the attack has to be so close in this one for you to like do it. So there were
Hmm.
times where I was like doing it, I was like, did I do it correctly? Because that's when you just put the shield on,
Hmm.
like, which is like a bubble. So maybe that's something that they can fix with a patch. Who knows? But it's like
Yeah.
that's basically nitpicking. If I need to like
That's
nitpick, yeah,
yeah,
that's
the easiest. What in the world was that? Easily the biggest thing that I could like nitpick was that where it's like it feels like definitely kids game, and then all of a sudden it gets like very difficult
I
out of
would even say
nowhere.
it even does the Horizon bow and arrow thing slightly better. So,
Yeah, because it felt nice to shoot those arrows. I went through that whole area with the big red tree, and you got to shoot all the the targets because I didn't understand that I could just kind of move on from there. But then I realized that each time you do it, you can keep getting blue shards.
mhm,
So I did like a couple of laps around there, just firing off. I realized that when you jump in the air, it slows time, but they don't actually tell you that.
mhm.
Um, or it slows you in the air, not necessarily time around you.
Yeah,
But
that's
then there's
straight
an
from Horizon.
ability
Yeah,
that
that's
lets you
literally from
slow time.
Horizon. Even
Right.
Assassin's Creed Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla lets you do that,
Yeah.
like jumping
Which
and
is
hold, and it's
really
like,
helpful because a lot of people just like you're fighting, especially in third person games. it's a struggle to get that pinpoint accuracy, especially on controller.
Mhm.
And that's one reason I could hit anything, especially in something like Days Gone, um,
When you
where that
click
was the only
R3. Mhm.
way. Yeah. Oh, all of that. So I'm really glad that all of those little quality of life things are there. Um, I don't know if there's anything else that I could say outside of just how great the environment is. Just very, you know what? One last thing is it gave me that feeling that I got in 2005 when Avatar: The Last Airbender came out and I watched the first episode, where it was like it gives me this little glimpse of a new world
Mhm.
that is clearly very specifically put together. It's not like, you've read or watched those series where it just kind of looks tacked together and they're like, okay, well, you've got this thing and then you've got this world and then you've got little tropes that you just throw together, and that's like you're just kind of making it and then you're doing something else. But this feels like they were like, oh no, we've got this whole magic system, we got this whole spirit guide group, we got the blue crystals, and like how that all works together. And I love it and I
And
want to
it's
see
their
more.
first game. It's their first game. Their big thing was the Majora's Mask short they did in 2016, which I linked to you that I remember having seen
I
all
watched it.
these
It
years
was
back.
gorgeous.
And the thing they went from there to this. It's so funny. That's why I always say that this game has like a Nintendo like magic. Funny enough, they worked on a Nintendo thing unofficially
Who would have
like
thought?
5 years ago, but
Which looks better than any art style I think Nintendo has put out there.
oh yeah.
In a while, it looked like that Wii U CG Zelda trailer that
Mhm.
everyone got hyped up about, and then
That
never,
promoted the
never
Wii U, the
happened.
tablet, and all of that. Yeah, I
Yeah,
remember. Yeah, and they never got there.
what could have been.
Yes, they're in Zelda in particular. They're so in love now with the cell shading style, which in a way, yeah, I love
I
Breath
like
of the
it.
Wild art style. I like it.
What kind of hurts my thoughts on it is that the only reason they're doing it is because the Switch can't handle
Mm,
actual HD.
yes,
And that always, it's like, oh, this is so great, and then I'm like, oh wait, they didn't do that because it's cool, it's because they had to.
but to be
Which
fair, it still looks pretty. It looks evocative
it,
and pretty,
oh, it's
considering the technical
fantastic.
limitations. That's like
Yeah.
Nintendo's thing of like trying to make the most out of so little. But I'm just glad that now we're at a point where we can't always just rely on Nintendo to give that kind of childlike magic in their games, especially in an era where we get so many self-serious games. This is
Mhm.
what we always need to be kind of like the counter programming for everything.
If you just even put in Sony's Bug Snacks, Temtem, Kena, the Ratchet and Clank, obviously, Astro's Playroom,
Mm-hmm.
all
Sackboy.
just Sony. Sackboy, um, that's only Sony stuff, and I'm thinking there's so much more out there. I mean, that's not even counting anything that they put on Steam, but that's
Mm-hmm.
like you could put anything on Steam. Oh my gosh, it's just I'm glad that we're getting to this point, and I'm hoping that this starts a new trend of, hey, what are people really passionate about? What's like a nice, soft, palate cleansing adventure game that we can fund for billions of dollars? And
Crash Bandicoot recently also added another one
also
to the list.
true.
It's like all
Rest in
this,
peace.
yeah, rest in peace right now.
um,
But I just think about it. It's like all these things that so many people were like, why would everyone do it? It's like that's not what the market wants. Everything's dead. It's like starve something, starve anyone of something, and they'll want it. We're at that point where you saying, "Oh, this is like a PS2 game in on a PS5," is not the criticism you think it is.
right.
That's gonna be like music in the years to so many gamers that are so tired of open world checkbox checklist games. That's just fact because everything became the same. When you put so much in the market, like it's what it said about in our topic last week, that the oversaturation of games almost doing the same thing, only changing their aesthetic, but they're basically the same game, is why all these other games are now like becoming successful when before they wouldn't have been.
Mm.
And that's what happens when you put something in the market that's all too similar, you will always want the counter programming. This is the perfect example for that with Deathloop and now this. both of
no,
these two games have been
both
like so unique in their
games.
way.
That was one thing I didn't get to send it to our little group chat, but with Deathloop, Kana, about to be Death Stranding director's cut, we are getting a smorgasbord renaissance of like non-conventional games in this
Hmm.
Q4 2021 right now. And I'm living for it because I think so many people subconsciously or consciously have started picking up on that, where it's like we've been playing this kind of stuff, we're kind of tired of it, but like you've got your huge gaming companies. Like I know we trash on Ubisoft, but I think they genuinely don't know what to do to change their own formula, and that's why it comes down to indie developers creating such crazy things. Pathless even
Yeah.
earlier this year being the people that are going to bring in this next wave of
Oh my
next
god,
gen
you mentioned the Pathless. I
stuff.
have not played the Pathless.
Me
I need to.
neither.
I need to play. I'm waiting for a sale. I'm waiting for it to go down in
There
price, and
was
I'm.
a sale too, and I passed
I
on it
missed
because
that.
there was
Yeah,
other things I was buying.
but that's another kind of game. Like that game, like just based on the trailers that I've seen, that like that game is in this very artsy group of games that are kind of like in the indie space that evokes so many classics from the past. I feel the Pathless evokes the Shadow of the Colossus kind of like sense of grandeur and
Yeah.
exploration in a way that I kind of want to try it. I've been hoping that some of these games are going to make it to PS Plus. I don't know why, especially since Bugsnax. That's how it started there.
Yeah,
So
really. And I still haven't even played it. I have it.
yeah,
I
it's
haven't
in PS
touched it.
Plus. Yeah,
Oh
but
man,
it's
I don't.
there. It's
Hmm.
there.
That's. I mean, we're getting more and more spoiled with hopefully the exposure that these games really deserve. Where, like, I think I mentioned it a few weeks back with Nintendo, they would have this indie direct and talk about all these games, and then we don't hear anything about it when it's actually time for them to release.
Hmm.
I'll find them on sale way
Later
later
on.
on.
Hmm.
It wasn't not the new one, Death Store, but it was one of the ones where it was like this little like chibi guy with blue eyes and he had two
Hmm.
swords on his back, and we had that showcased on Nintendo's indie thing, and it was there on PSN. And I'm like, whatever happened to these games? Like,
Yeah, it's so sad with what happens with indie with the indie scene that they get their big showcase moment in one of the showcases, and then sometimes they disappear unless they're being very heavily pushed. And
what they just need is like after one of those things, they need to just post even like a picture to Twitter, be like, "Hey, remember these games? These are all the release dates. Go buy them." Like just the basic minimum of, "Hey, do you want indie games to actually succeed? Here's your opportunity to help."
yeah, especially now that the indie scene is moving, is not just synonymous with 8-bit, 16-bit recreations. Indie is going to be more important than ever, I feel like, in being the center of creativity for gaming. That's where like all the ideas that used to define a bunch of these companies that are more focused on the high budget, super realistic, like blockbuster style game, like what Sony does with their exclusives now, is
Yeah.
like more important than ever for the indie studio to like have this kind of triple A quality to it while still remaining kind of like that more scrappy, more garage style. Like this is coming from the heart. This is coming from like through passion that sometimes cannot be felt in the more corporate, higher end AAA stuff. Which I like those games. Those are like the big stuff that I like most of the time. But especially playing Kina makes me realize that we need those indies to do the work because it's so crazy. Because I don't feel like if Kina had been made more like AAA way, I feel it would, or if Ubisoft had done Kina, it would have had microtransactions up the wazoo. It would have been a checklist monstrosity. Like just think about that because of the way some of
I
these devs are like so wired in the AAA level. Think
I could
about that.
see it so easily because Kana has all of those opportunities, but it feels like if you took like a mid stage Assassin's Creed game and then you cut all of the fat out,
Mhm.
all of the nonsense, all of the side stuff, all of the what's it called? Microtransactions, like you said, all of the abilities to like, hey, look at all these cool outfits and weird reskins that we can throw Kana in and all of the little guys in. And you told like a very streamlined story is what ended up happening. And that's what I realized I loved is I want Assassin's Creed without all of the fat and dumb
Yeah,
stuff now.
that's why the first. Oh my god, you hear that?
I did just now,
Okay,
but
I
it
hope it
stopped.
started. Yeah, they're like construction still happening. That's a never-ending nightmare here. But yeah, just thinking about like how like the first Assassin's Creed has aged so well because it doesn't have that fat.
Doesn't.
It doesn't.
And
It's
if
like
you
so
could just
funny.
skip those cutscenes, you'd get pretty much exactly what Kana is now. And that's a weird comparison that I never thought I'd be making.
Right? But it is where that series is right now and how important it is for this counter programming to keep on going. I'll be like Ember Labs now is like the one of those studios that I'm gonna keep an eye out on everything they do, wherever they do it. Because for this to be their first full game, mad respect. Massive, massive, mad respect to them because they just were in the animation studio. And I'm glad that skill was able to translate into a really great game. Really,
Yep.
really great.
And
So
the fact that so many things all worked perfectly together from the story, the gameplay, the environment, all of that. Like, you don't just get lucky with one of those things. You had to do a lot of
yeah.
crazy work behind the scenes to do that.
And as an aside, like I have crapped on Sony a lot in this show over this past year over many things that I feel have not been up to par for them. And some stuff I'm still kind of like, even with the showcase that we got is like the things that are exciting are things I was already excited for. A new God of War, a new Spider-Man. Obviously, we're getting Wolverine. That's really cool.
True.
But Sony, I have been criticizing a lot that they're also one of those companies that have become too reliable on their one style of game. That props to them for identifying Kina, even if it's like I know there's been a lot of brouhaha about how like the indie scene seems to be flocking more towards Xbox because of Game Pass and all that, and that may be true. I would say at least you can't deny that at least Sony saw quality in this because there's so many indies that come and go that looked interesting, but it didn't come together. Blah blah blah. Sometimes, and by putting their money where their mouth is, they put this out there, and it's one of their few marquee titles they have this year. The next Deathloop and Death Stranding closing out 2021 for them.
And I really hope that both of those end up really sticking around. I truly do because I mean Deathloop I had so much fun about, and even now that I've finished it, I still want to go in and like solve more of the mysteries and do more of the little things that I didn't know about, and the fact that there's like 10 hidden trophies that I know nothing about, even though I feel like I've done a lot about that game, is crazy. So
and they
I'm
have a
like, well,
box
shoot.
and they have a box where it says chaos in it.
Yes, they have a little barricade. That's actually I'm gonna blow your mind. That is literally about 3 feet to the left of where you killed me in that stream.
Really?
Yes, it's
That's
just
awesome.
on the other side of the cement wall that you walked past when you shotgunned me. So it is. It was right there, and I happened to see it, and I
That's
went,
still
"Oh
to this moment my
gosh!"
favorite moment of playing this game because I was so unaware that it was you because the game doesn't tell you who invades you until you get killed or you
Because I was
kill it.
acting like a brain dead AI.
Yeah.
That's what. That's why. Oh man, I should have kept. Oh, I was thinking in my head, I was like, this is gonna be so cool. I'm gonna kill Alejandro on his stream, and we're gonna get mentioned in the podcast. It's gonna be great. And then I'm just walking around and I get killed immediately. I just felt so bad.
Oh man.
But yeah,
Good month of games, I would say this. Especially now with Death
it's
Stranding this Friday. I feel like I'll be
yes.
served for a while. Like I don't need anything new.
You'll have
Because
to since nothing really is coming out until
yeah.
mid-November.
Yeah, because in October with the Battlefield delay, like Far Cry 6, that's a game that I'm waiting for in the Black Friday sale because Ubisoft is pretty good on that at discounting their games. Metroid Dread is the one where I will just say this, like I haven't bought anything from Nintendo other than the Skyward Sword HD thing, and nothing has really appealed. Metroid, I'm appealed because I like 2D Metroid a lot. I remember our E3 episode. That was like the game I popped the most for, because first 2D Metroid game, original 2D Metroid game since 2002. So 19 years waiting for that one. But there's been just something off about the way, even though, let's just say this, like Nintendo has at least put out games this year compared to last year, where they
Yeah.
starved everyone with just Animal Crossing and Age of Calamity here and the limited Super Mario 3D All Stars collection that doesn't exist anymore. Um, Glad I bought it, because I'll forever have it there.
Me too, I guess.
Yeah. Hey, that Mario collection saved you during the hurricane.
It
So
did. Even though I only played it for like an hour, that was a great hour
yeah,
that I got to play it.
at least something. You could have been even more bored during
I
shelter in
would
place.
have. I
But
was
yeah, like some of the things that they have put out, they that don't seem to be the you really need to get this kind of Nintendo game. It's just there for people that are on that system.
yeah.
So I'm hoping Metroid is at least big and very well received by a lot of people. That'll convince me to at least get it, especially because with Nintendo's games, you can never rely on a sale with them. They're so stubborn at keeping their games at full price. So I feel it works for them, because since people know, oh yeah, this is never gonna go on sale. If I want, I might as well buy it now.
Right.
I guess that's a strategy, because at
It
least
is. It's a scummy one.
yeah, it's a very scummy one, because at least with Xbox or PlayStation, with Xbox it is, oh yeah, it may go on sale in a bit, or it might be in Game Pass. Maybe I could wait. This seems
Yeah.
like a game that would fit in Game Pass. Or with PlayStation, is like,
Nintendo's like, F you, it's gonna start at 60 and go up to like $150 by the end of the year.
I wouldn't put it past them.
I
So
mean, just look at Xenoblade. Chronicles, the original, I think,
mhm.
was being sold for like 100 something bucks at GameStop on the Wii because of how
Rare.
few there were.
Yeah, wow.
So yeah, Nintendo and all its things. We could talk about that forever.
Was that
Alejandro, what else
Nintendo?
we talking about?
Yes. But yeah, no, it was just real quick, just with Metroid, Guardians of the Galaxy is October. So wait and
I
see
don't
for
know
that
if I'm
one.
gonna buy that one, honestly.
Yeah, it's a wait and see for me. It's like
Yeah.
previous came out today. Fairly positive, but not very
I just don't
huge
think I'm
success.
gonna enjoy it as much as I would like
Mhm.
to. It just feels not like what I need right
Yeah.
now. I need something different.
Yeah. Call of Duty is a miss for me. I'm not buying that one. My brother is.
Yeah.
Battlefield, I hope the beta comes out soon, because it was supposed to come out this month and it got
Mhm.
pushed. So no
Delayed.
news on that beta. And we need that beta, because if there's no beta for that game's effed. Let's just put it that way. Like Battlefield with no beta, it's very bad sign. So that they better
Speaking
put
of
it out.
betas, I did get to play the Vanguard beta briefly on I
It was
think
fine.
Friday.
Yeah, it was fine. It
It
was
was
Call
all
of
right.
Duty. Yeah,
Like, I mean, it played better because of the
the engine.
Modern Warfare engine, obviously. I do like that they're leaning a little into the alternate history because you can have like some crazy attachments on your
Mhm.
weapons with like your foregrips, your sights, and it looks enough that it
Yeah,
fits
yeah, they're
in that kind of
modernizing a World
aesthetic.
War II game. They're trying
Um,
to modernize it a
yeah,
lot. But
that's what I'm like. I kind of feel a little icky about it because it's not like you've got your Wolfensteins where it's doing that for a very specific reason and it's telling a specific story. This is we're just going to make it easy to customize
this
things
is
for people.
cowardly. Like it looks cowardly almost. Also, like they not even mentioned the enemies are Nazis. Why are you not being played in Nazi Germany? Is like a part of history. Is like, why are you so?
I was thinking about that recently, because of course you had your Battlefield 5 not admitting that they were
Mhm,
Nazis versus your Wolfenstein, I think New Order was
mhm.
that the
Yeah, they
second
were
one.
playing in there. Yeah.
So I think the reason is because you play as the Germans in the multiplayer games, and they don't want anyone to identify as, hey, I'm playing as the Nazis this time. I think that would really not be, that wouldn't digest well in this modern climate. Whereas with Wolfenstein, you're only playing as Blazkowicz and
Mhm.
you're only killing the Nazis. I think
Mhm.
that's the difference is if you play as the evil side, they shouldn't allow you to identify as that side,
Yeah,
is what I
but I
think.
would say you could even try to identify them as Axis, also Axis versus Allies, but they're not even
Usually they
doing
do.
that.
Really? What are they
Yeah,
calling them? which is the German Empire or something.
I don't even remember what it was, but it had none of that imagery. I'm like, how are you doing a World War II game and being so disregarded to at least have something that at least is
Well, they
historically.
usually had the red and black cross, but it
Hmm.
just wasn't a swastika. Usually that's what they do, or like the eagle symbolizing.
Hmm.
Um, they'll do a lot of that usually. That's what they did for five because that was like their only way around it because they had to show the picture of what flag, but then they couldn't show certain things. And then of course it didn't stop people from making the swastika their emblem, which would get them banned immediately.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I
It's
get
just
a
like,
kick out of seeing
yeah.
those.
Yeah, it's just weird to seeing that Call of Duty is like so afraid of like offense that they're like so toothless these days. So I don't know where Vanguard is going to be. Like, I'm definitely more excited for Battlefield. I just hope that we get to play it soon to get some fears quelled that it's not going to be a Battlefield 4 situation. Halo Infinite then is later this year. So that's all for me this year. It's like barely anything until
There's not much else, so I'm going to
2022.
be filling myself with what I've got now plus Battlefield. And for legal reason, I need to clarify that I get a kick out of seeing people using swastikas as their emblems in games because I immediately get to ban them.
Yeah.
And like report them specifically for their emblem. Like
Mhm.
For Honor does that, and I see a lot of those. And then Battlefield 1 had that. And I loved seeing it. I was like, oh,
Oh,
that
you're getting
feels good.
reported.
Just get reported.
Oh yeah.
And then I could never have to see them again. It's great. So anyway,
All right.
um,
Yeah. That's pretty much it with everything we've been playing right now. So Paul, thankfully there's not many news this week because of the way they
yeah,
were recording. Thank you, Nintendo. So
thanks,
Paul,
Nintendo.
press X.
For some news.
All right, Paul. Kind of like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, there's a Nintendo Direct coming this week on Thursday. I don't remember the time, so our reactions pending later. So, number
Yes.
one, Paul, how big of a Detroit Become Human fan are you?
I am one of the few people that absolutely loved that game.
Well, their developer is apparently working on a Star Wars game. So, according to insider Tom Henderson and corroborated by reporting by Video Games Chronicle and a bunch of others, it seems like, yeah, they're definitely working on a Star Wars game. According to the report, Quantic Dream would have been developing this game for the past 18 months. And it's supposed to be more of a departure from Quantic Dream, which they are the ones that standardize the QTE based adventure games. So every time that you play those games, they're defined by quick time events and weird controllers like contextuals.
The
Yeah,
other side of the coin to Telltale.
yeah, literally the less point and clicky alternative to
Yeah.
Telltale. And they're supposed to be making it more action oriented and also including things like multiplayer. So whether we hear about the game soon remains to be seen. I am a huge Heavy Rain fan. I hated Beyond Two Souls. I wanted to love that game more than I did.
I
The
think I got that one for free,
Yeah,
and
it was
that's
in
the only
PS
reason I
Plus.
played
Yeah,
it.
yeah, that was in PS Plus. It had great production value, great acting, but that game was so up its own ass. Same as Detroit Become Human in a way that I feel.
It was
Did
long
Yeah,
too.
yeah, Detroit Become Human. I think it's very impressive in how branchy its story can be, and it has
Yes.
really great moments like the Clancy Brown acting like interacting with Connor. That was that
Yeah.
game at its very best.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
the Kara and the little girl thing was it has some really good moments until it
It
got
had some
cheapened.
strong moments. Yeah.
Yeah, until it got cheapened by a very stupid plot twist.
Yeah, that was a little weird.
And then the Marcus side of the campaign is where I felt that game was at its
That was the
hokiest.
struggle.
Yeah.
Because somebody, I watch a few people of color streamers and YouTubers that kind of had their talk about that, and the idea of not just like Quantic Dreams, Detroit Become Human, but stuff like Bright, where any attempt at saying, "Oh, this is like racism," but not,
Mhm.
immediately uh,
Undermines.
yeah, it undermines like the entire message you're trying to give
Mhm.
because then it either says that, oh, real racism doesn't exist in this world, or it's not as big of a deal as whatever we're showing you right now.
Mhm.
And that is just an area that I'm realizing is not great to attempt,
Mm-hmm.
especially like no matter how many people are working on a game that might be people of color or
Mm-hmm.
the people that are being focused on in this story. I think it's just it's the allegorical nature can really upset a lot of people because it can cheapen that
Yeah.
whole idea.
David Cage's games. So yeah, David Cage is the director of Quantic Dream, and he was the writer of all these games. Like they're not good at subtlety. They're not good at they're a little too overt in trying to make a point and painting everything at broad strokes. That I feel the Marcus section of Detroit Become Human is it's personal, I would say, especially after what we lived last year with the protests and all of that and how all of that was handled. Is like the way Detroit handles it is laughable. It's absolutely laughable. And it's unfortunate because there's so many parts of that game that are good. But again,
I,
like the message is so undermined by the more prominent Marcus side of that of that game because it's like it paints everything in such broad strokes that I feel undermines any social movement that has actually happened in real life. So Detroit Become Human, not the most subtle of developers. So them
yeah,
working on a Star Wars game, the not
that
Star Wars even less. They're not known for subtlety.
I mean, hey, maybe it's a match made in heaven because
Yeah.
two things that are not made for subtlety are suddenly coming together.
Mhm.
Um, I I think it's interesting. I'm skeptical because Star Wars, not even involving Star Wars right now, but the fact that this is all stuff that they've never done before,
Mhm.
because all they've really done is QTE heavy story based.
From
But
Indigo
with this
Prophecy
being
and coming to this.
more right, and this being more action oriented with things like multiplayer, like you say, this is all stuff they've never done before. And I mean, this is kind of ironic because we're coming off the heels of talking for like 30 plus minutes on a group that just started their first game and
Mhm.
crushed it. But Quantic Dream is that's almost worse than doing your first game is when you've done a lot of the same games and then
Mhm.
you have to do something different. That's exactly what EA has struggled with so long when they were forcing these studios that were known for doing one kind of thing and then forcing them to do something else. So I don't have a lot of hope for it, but I really hope at the same time that it is good because more Star Wars is
Yeah,
more Star
top
Wars.
level is more Star Wars, and I feel this is also very exciting to think that the if this has been in development in 18 months, so like for 18 months, it just goes to show that Disney was so fed up by EA that they went behind their backs to be like already planting the seeds to start development of games, so that then by the time EA's exclusivity deal expires in 2023, all these games are ready to release. That's to me what's
Um,
cool.
it's exactly the kind of scumminess that I expect from Disney,
Yeah.
honestly, at this point, based on a lot of their problems of not paying people. And I don't know if you've heard that Disney released a behind the scenes for some of their rides, and they actually lifted actual diagrams from YouTubers that have made subject videos on those subjects before. There is
Oof.
a cut and paste of different like color schemes, but the exact same line work of this one guy that was explaining how Tower of Terror worked. And he said, I didn't even base it on any blueprints because I didn't have access to it. I was just proving a point. The fact that Disney lifted that one to one and put it in with access to their own blueprints was like, that's very suspicious, guys. So yeah, that's just the most recent example of Disney really not doing a good job with their stuff.
I mean, then there's the whole Black Widow thing that now they're entangled that
Yeah,
lawsuit with Scarlett Johansson also said.
I and I'm definitely on her side with that one. Never expected I'd be agreeing with that with her. Very Legolas and Gimli moment there.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the fact that they were just like, yeah, okay, we'll agree to this, and then just kind of change the rules without legally agreeing to something different
Yeah,
is
without telling her we're gonna amend your contract because we're releasing this movie differently
right.
because obviously of pandemic. Like I understand them, but it's like if you had a contract prior, you had to like
Yeah,
amend all of that. You just can't
you're
just
one of
change
the
everything and hoping everything stays the same.
you're the biggest media company in the entire world. I think you can afford to like amend a contract and pay somebody that deserves payment. That's just what messes me up when they have clearly enough money to do that and choose not to. Is like it's messed up. But yeah.
With
That
the yeah.
anyway.
Yeah,
What were you gonna say?
with the Quantic Dream doing a Star Wars game that is not going to be QTE based on the reporting. So a developer specializing in a genre of game, then making a switch, it's a 50-50. It can work really well or it can work really bad. One example of it working really well was Horizon Zero Dawn. Guerrilla only worked on first person shooters. That was a shooter studio. Then they branched out and did an open world 3D action game. And they had to like make it work. And they worked hard to like reestablish their studio for them to be able to do that kind of game.
God of War
Because
did that too, didn't they?
hmm,
Because Santa Monica, they did all of the previous ones, the main lines at least.
they've got a war and then they switched the
Yeah,
perspective and everything for that. Even if it does the same series, it's a different kind of game for
yeah.
them.
It's like you put them next to each other. The only similarities would be the names of characters, and
Mhm.
that's it. So it can be done, but
You have to
it's
make the put the
so
work.
rare.
Yeah, you have to put in
Yeah,
the work because the reality is that some developers that specialize in something in game development are specializing in a very specific kind of game, and asking them to do something else is like sometimes can be a pretty big ask. So we'll see. Like with this
yeah.
is
I think that's about it. But if you want to actually indulge me for like 2 more minutes, I do
go for
have
it.
one story about Detroit Become Human,
Go
and
tell me
so it's sort of a way to tell people that they should give it a shot, even with
the problems.
the problematic things that it deals with. Because I rented Detroit Become Human from GameStop with the full intention of returning it at the end of playing it, and I started the day. It was right when I think I'd been dating my now wife for about a year, and that was going to be the thing that we did for that day. She would come over, and I told her about this game and sold her the premise and
She would
everything.
tell you the decisions to pick. Mhm.
Exactly. So she would tell me what to do, and I would hit the buttons for it, so I could make sure like I kept up with the QTE things. And like two or three of my roommates were in the room at the time because I do all my gaming in our family room. So we put it up on the big screen and we started it off. And because, as you know, the first opening hours of Detroit Become Human are so captivating
Oh, they're so
based
good.
on
It's so good. It's the police, the police
Mhm.
hostage thing.
the hostage situation, and it gets you so good that just by the end of the first interaction, to spoil my own decisions for you, I failed, and not only got the child killed, but Connor got shot at the same time. So it was like the worst possible outcome because I was playing it, everybody's shouting at the screen, shoot him, do this, do that, ask him this, ask him that. Like they got really hyped into it. And these are all people, not a single one plays video games at all.
Mhm.
My wife being the closest one who plays like her Pokemons and her Zeldas. But like some of these other people had never picked up a controller in their life, but they were so caught up in this story that not only did we not get anything done, we burned through the entire game from the very early morning to about 2 in the morning the next day, played all the way through, not even really taking any breaks. Um,
It grabs
with
you. That
yeah,
game grabs
with
you.
not only all of my roommates, which are four of them, so there's like six of us, plus four more friends that happened to come over. They were planning on hanging out and going to like coffee. They sat down, they pulled up their own chairs, and we all sat through the end of this game together because of how crazy powerful it was. Like half of us were crying at the end because I unfortunately made the wrong mistake with Clara, was her name,
Car, huh?
and got her killed at the end.
Do you drown?
Um, no, she gets shot by she steals the tickets to the bus to
Mm-hmm.
get to the place, and she ends up getting found out, but she sacrifices herself so the little girl can get away. And everyone's like, oh my gosh, this is what happens. And like based on what we did, and I was like, I tried, guys, I swear. And then like Marcus survives barely. Connor like is about to die and manages to transfer his consciousness in the other one. And people like jumped out of their chairs and cheered when he ended up surviving. It was like watching a sports game and end game at the same time. and being the one holding these controls for people just going ballistic. So I will say, to cap it all off, if you've never if you're not really into games, it's a fantastic way to get into them because it doesn't hold too much stretch. It doesn't focus too much on the gaming side of it. It's a solid story, and if you can get it with a group of friends, you're not going to have more fun elsewhere.
That's what's cute. That's the key part. Like being able to experience it with people is like some of the best ways you can play these kind of games. I did that with Until Dawn. I got that exact
That's
same experience with Until Dawn.
yeah.
And I personally like Until Dawn a little bit better than Detroit because Until Dawn knows what it is. It's a schlocky
Yes.
horror slasher film. And
I
that
couldn't
makes
handle it, but I would watch my roommates play it, and
it's so good.
yes,
Like that's the only way that I played Until Dawn with a group of friends. I did it
I
with
couldn't do it by
I was
myself.
on RA my senior year. That's when that game came out, and I had everyone from my floor come in and watch me play it, and then make the decisions. Then with my RA group later that year, I did the exact same thing with them, and we played all night, like
That
literally all
sounds
night.
amazing.
I did it with my roommates. It's like, and every time everyone did different decisions.
That's the
The,
best part.
it seemed like the different ways that enemies can get, like not enemies, like your characters can get killed and all that. I think that works really well with Until Dawn. And Detroit, I think, is better at changing its story a little bit more with and the way that the stories can really change with the different branches and all that. That's why that game took a long time to make. It's just that Marcus story that handles the oppression side. It's like it's so schlocky that I can't. Uh, and I like that game a lot in spite of that. And I understand that. It's just like I can't divorce the fact that the market side of it is like it just handled, especially after what we just went through last year. If I thought it was weird about it, then after seeing what happened last year, it was like, yeah, now I realize that they really did it wrong.
January 6th by itself, that's a lot.
Yes,
But then
exactly.
plus all the riots that we had to deal with.
Mhm,
And
exactly.
yeah.
So, final story, Paul.
Yes.
Yeah, because there's barely anything. Thank you, Nintendo. This would have been important. We'll talk about Nintendo Direct. In the latest development of the long-winded Apple versus Epic lawsuit, which by the way, the first time we talked about this, Paul, was the second episode
I
when we came
remember that.
back.
We made the thumbnail with the Apple versus Epic
Mhm.
logo.
Yeah, so in the latest development of it, like following an induction from one of the cores that told Apple that they have to allow applications to offer like payment outside the Apple ecosystem. Before they couldn't be like, click here, that's going to send you to a website so you can make a payment for something. It appears Apple is continuing to blacklist Epic from reintroducing Fortnite to the Apple ecosystem, which, by the way, like the reason why Fortnite got removed was because they added that alternative payment thing that would like surpass the Apple ecosystem to give them payment to that. So that's still a problem for them. And and Apple is citing that they're waiting until the full verdict of the court is final. Here's what's interesting. As Epic's Team Sweeney noted on Twitter, for the court to have like a final like verdict of this, they have to go through all the appeals. You know how sometimes there's like they say something and then they go through an appeal and blah blah blah. And he says that the appeals could last almost 5 years to be done before there's a full verdict. This is nasty.
This
This
is
Apple
the
versus
most
it's so
petty thing, and I am living for it
yes.
because I am not super keen on either of these companies,
Mhm.
frankly. And just like was it Jason Schreier that initially talked about
Mhm.
the first verdict for this? It's about the worst outcome for both of them because Apple has to let other people get second opportunities to buy
Stuff.
microtransaction
Mhm.
money, and then Epic loses out because of some other reason before this even came out that I'm blanking out on. But the fact that Apple was like, oh, so we're going to be really petty about this and we're just going to blacklist you until this is over. It's it immediately screams that moment where Gandalf knocks the Balrog off of the
Mhm.
bridge and then the Balrog pulls Gandalf with him.
Uh-huh.
That's Apple falling in and then snatching Epic back right at the end saying, ah, nah, you're not going to get anything either. We're
Oh,
going
yeah.
down together.
I think my thing is that in all intents and purposes, the one that's always been in the wrong here was Epic for violating terms of service.
True.
That's what makes it funnier.
They were ready to die on that hill, and they sure did. At least for the next 5 years for Apple. I mean, they're not going to be hurting for cash, but they're going to be hurting from not being able to do it on mobile for any of their stuff.
Yeah,
No
and
iPhones.
the thing is that what makes it more dangerous about this whole pettiness that's happening between Apple and Epic is that, from if I remember correctly, from what I read, that Apple also banned the development account for Epic, which it's serious because a lot of games use the Unreal Engine in the development
I didn't think of that.
account. So this hurts also developers that build their games using Epic's technology, which is free to use now.
That's only for anything using Apple products, right?
Yeah, but if you want to use a game using the Unreal Engine and Apple, you can't. I think that's what that's a
Oh,
problem.
so you
So
can't use the
mhm.
engine. You can't just like build things. Wow.
Yeah, so it's nasty. It's like the most interesting part about this lawsuit was like all the dirty laundry that we got aired that one time we talked about it. There's so many, and that's when I learned what the process of discovery was, and that's why, and like what being in discovery means when you're like in a lawsuit. And when we talked about the Activision and Blizzard thing, which I didn't put it here in the news, that now
That's true.
the SEC is basically targeting Activision now, so the federal government is all over them. It's like,
Dude, it's
yeah, I
it's
didn't put it
so
as an official
messy.
thing, but the Activision Blizzard thing is just a, it's
It's ongoing and it's getting worse, boys.
yeah, it's getting
Strap
more.
in.
I mean, even the director of Overwatch is like retired, like
Yeah,
it's,
he left,
yeah, he
right?
left. He's like, he's taking a break, he says.
In the middle of
Development.
Overwatch 2's whole development. What was it? I think Alana Pierce said it the best. She just said, "I'm convinced that Overwatch 2 just doesn't actually exist, and we're just being messed with."
I wouldn't be surprised because
Oh
it's
man,
what they pull up to kind of like Overwatch 2 has been the, oh my god, we're doing a crappy thing. Put it out, put it out. So people start like, don't think about the fact that we banned Blitzchung. They don't,
just glad that it didn't really work. In
not
the
this
end,
time. It's like there's so much fire, there's so much heat falling on them that what, how much lower can Activision go there? It's so funny. But
they always could, sadly.
yeah, here's what's funny. It's funny that that Activision has removed all names from their company from Call of Duty Vanguard. You don't see the Activision logo at all in that thing.
Really,
They're literally, before it was like Activision presents Call of Duty something.
that's
Now the
true.
trailer says Call of Duty presents Call of Duty Vanguard.
Call of Duty presents. What the heck?
You know how
Uh,
bad it is. They know that. If they
yeah,
are so willing to like remove their
scrubbing
entire
their
name
own
from, yeah,
name.
to not like associate them, that's bad. It's but going back to like the process of discovery, when we found out about that Bill Cosby suit that was that specific room from all the people that actually had been fired from Blizzard because of the sexual harassment and all of that, that they were all attributed to that Bill Cosby suite they had at BlizzCon. Then I'm like, man, if this is the kind of thing that they're finding, what could they find if Activision goes into discovery with one of these lawsuits? What could they find? That's
There's there's the problem is like
what skeleton is in the closet.
I'm glad this is happening for such a huge company
Mhm.
because it shows how like trickle down that process is, and I'm hoping and praying that when this stuff goes down with the biggest company there is in gaming right now, hopefully other smaller companies are going to understand, oh, I can't get away with all of this.
Mhm.
If they themselves, with all of their limitless ability, can still get slapped by the SEC and the state of California and the federal government, maybe I should also treat people like humans.
Mhm. Yeah, there's only good things can come out of this.
I'm hoping so. I really do. It's just a shame that all the people that are currently there that had nothing to do with it are also going
Yeah,
to really suffer by this. So in
yeah,
any
that's
case,
that's what sucks. It's
yeah,
like for example, Diablo 2 Resurrected comes
that's
out
coming
this
out
week.
tomorrow,
Yeah, tomorrow comes out.
um,
And
or today, according to the date of the video.
yes,
Yeah,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's coming out. It's coming out this week. Let's
yeah,
put it that way. And like Scale Up mentioned it, it's like he condemns everything that's happening at Activision, but he's still gonna cover their games because the publisher is at fault, not the
Right.
developers.
Yeah, this is one of those few examples where it's like they might have published it, but they didn't make it.
Mhm.
So
So
I
punishing the
really
thing
hope
for the
that.
groundwork is like I understand that sentiment. That's why I'm like I was not gonna buy at all Diablo 2 Resurrected. I'm waiting on a sale now. In a way, just be like, I would eventually want to support these guys eventually, but
It's like I hope
not
it
right
does
now.
well because they put a lot of work into that thing.
And it looks good. And that's the thing, that's Vicarious Visions after they got took out of Tony Hawk development and what they did with Crash Bandicoot, they got
Oh
absorbed
yeah.
into Blizzard to work on that thing,
Jeez.
which sucks that
Yeah.
happened.
And then you don't know. It's like, should I support them because they were taken from another process that they really loved to do this other thing that they didn't want to do? I don't know where to spend my money anymore. I'm just gonna go play Kina.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's all for the news today. So
Yes.
Paul,
Uh,
hit me with a topic.
all right, Alejandro. It's probably gonna be a relatively short one, which I'm kind of glad for in the last realizing how long we've been talking,
Mhm.
and that is, what is one way that you would include video games into mainstream education?
Oh my god.
One or multiple. For me, I didn't do too much thought about this myself because I wanted it to be a little more stream of consciousness. The first off the top of my head is learning things that you can't visualize easily, like your space astronomy lessons. You've got biology lessons where you've got the whole process of like trees and I almost said landscaping, but like forestry and geology, things that like are very difficult for you to wrap your head around. Being able to visualize that would do so much for a lot of kids like me who was visual, or like you. When you're just being talked at for so long, even pictures almost don't really do what you need it to do. But like, I mean, obviously, like everybody else, my favorite day was the video day. But unlike a lot of them where it was just meant that you could sit around and joke with your buddies, it was like, oh, this is actually how I can learn this because I'm going to retain the things that I watch in this video much more than anything that a professor is going to talk at me about. So, do you have anything yet?
VR.
Well,
VR.
yeah,
Pretty much like
VR.
I have to give credit to my college. They actually implemented VR into our curriculum
Really?
for like architecture, for science, for all of that. And they would even use games like Minecraft to kind of like get an idea of how to mold stuff. Like I feel like that kind of game that lets you to like build stuff, it's a good way to put it into education because removed from the brouhaha that is like game violence, blah, 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 like being able to use it as a way for someone to express their creativity. Like I feel you use that kind of like the Astroneers, the Minecrafts, those kind of games. Use the VR platform, which most of these games already kind of like come preloaded with it, and find the course that is congruent with that. That is the way for that to have like good use in education in a way that completely like circumvents any worries about like video games are bad, which I'm glad we're past that. Aren't we? Aren't we happy that we're past that point?
I feel like sometimes it still gets hit with that. I just last week, even like I love my church so much, but he mentioned how like he said, "Oh, don't you remember when kids used to actually go outside and play instead of playing video games?" And of course, all the boomers are like, "Yeah, praise God." But then I'm like, y'all know kids still do that, right?
Yeah.
Like that's still a thing. They
and
just
and
sometimes play games too.
and you know that that's how people socialize.
Yeah.
So it's like
And it's just look at VR chat, the amazing stuff you've been able to like we as society have been able to do in the short time that's been a thing. um you have VTubers and stuff now where you can create a whole different persona for yourself, very I know you're not as versed in anime stuff, but there was a anime movie by the people that did the Digimon movie called Summer Wars,
Mm.
and it is that whole concept before that was a thing, where it was sort of futuristic, where everyone could go into this hub internet place, and they could have their own avatar, and it was mind blowing for its time. But I don't know if you played Digimon and stuff, right? You watched that movie back in the day.
I watched the anime year one
Okay,
and year two in its entirety. Like
okay.
I love Digimon.
There was a Digimon the movie that was made, and it was the same people that did this movie that I'm referring to. So it was just very
The
beautifully
credits
made.
of the Digimon movie always hit in the soul.
Exactly.
When Tai is like, when you see like what was the big evolution of Agumon, the
Oh,
big
dude,
dinosaur?
I don't
I don't
remember
remember
what
the
you're
name, but you
talking
see
about.
him like staring at him and just touching it. Like, what's
Yeah,
funny? Here's what's so funny with Digimon is like, because for some reason the theme came again like in my head, and I wasn't like this Digimon kick for like a
we were
week.
talking about that, weren't we?
Yeah,
Because
like in July.
yeah,
It-
you didn't know that it was a very different song in
in the
English.
US versus the one that I knew that's like from Japan and Spanish, and consuming that and seeing a lot of that. And now that is very like intrinsically tied to when my dog died. And now every time that I think of that song, I think of him. So I can't think of
Oh,
it. If not, I'm gonna
yeah.
cry. So, but the ending of Digimon the movie reminds me of that.
Mm. So yeah, at least you're familiar with at least where I was going with that. So anyway, yeah, um, just the ability that we have with internet and that people can kind of do and create whatever they want. I mean, we looked at a tiny glimpse of that with Dreams.
Mm-hmm.
The raw creativity people can make when you give them like an open source. And I mean, obviously, we have the source engine with computer and
Mm-hmm.
PC stuff, but that
Unity.
was much more niche. I
Unity.
would say, yeah, Unity. And now with Dreams being like an actual platform in consoles, being able to do stuff like that was awesome. I do wish there was a little more coverage now compared to when it released of hey, this is still around and a lot of people are using it and they're still like updating it and making better versions of the games they created and are making more things and stuff like that. There was, I know, like a 3D VR that allowed you to create things in 3D. They would make virtual sculptures and art pieces you could walk through, and just the possibilities are
Just think
so
how advanced games are, that they can be anything to anyone.
exactly.
Like especially like with so much you in such practical uses now. That's the great thing about where games are at now. That all of that can happen. Like there's that kind of there's those kinds of games already now that can be used in education. There's like things that are even like flight simulator almost kind of like simulating what it's like to be flying and all that, and kind of put that idea into the head of people into maybe what they'll like to become flyers.
I
It's a
think
good it's
that's
a good way to kind of like at least put that idea in mind and practice before they go through the real thing.
yeah, to piggyback what you're saying is at the very base level, even if it's not realistic to something like mechanic work or doctor or anything like that we would think about, um, if it inspires your ability and desire to do something, then that's already educational in itself. I mean, just like what you said, you don't have to have like a full cockpit button set up to say that, oh, like I can be a pilot because I play flight simulator. No, you can be a pilot because that clearly unlocked some kind of passion in you. And you can extrapolate that to everything where that you play. If it's something that gets your interest going, then you can do it.
And let
And
me
I
add
think
this
that's
one
what gaming
because this
does
was
better
very
than anything else.
this was also very formative for me. Video games are a great tool to teach history.
Yes.
Like history was my favorite subject in like fifth or sixth grade because that's when I played Call of Duty, like some of those earlier World War II games,
Hmm.
and they talked about those things that then in my history book I would read the book and see mentions like that sounds familiar. oh, it's what I
Yeah.
played.
Hmm.
And at least like even if games are not historically accurate, like for example, something I really love about Assassin's Creed is its
Yes.
architectural depiction of things that sometimes are incredibly accurate. Like nothing made me happier than one of the times that I replayed Assassin's Creed 2 and my sister was around and she loves watching me play games. And she lived in Italy for a while. And she was like, I just got chills. I was like, why? I've been there. It looks like that. It's like,
Hmm.
that's so interesting. And then I did the same thing with Assassin's Creed Origins. She went to Egypt with one of her friends one time. And then
Yeah. And they have
because
the whole walkthrough mode.
the Discovery Tour, that
I
it's like
love
complete, it's
that.
completely removed of violence and you're just walking and it teaches you stuff. It's like, that's so cool in the way that how
Um,
those games can work.
there are two examples that I can think of. One, of course, was the discovery mode of both Odyssey and Origins. The Assassin's Creed Unity, shout out to the tragic fire in Paris. I don't
Yeah.
know if you remember.
They gave Unity for free because of the
They
fire.
but not only that, but the firefighters use the blueprints from Assassin's Creed Unity for the not St. Louis, the Notre Dame Cathedral to actually know where every room was to make sure everyone was safe.
Mhm.
The fact that they used the work this one or like small team made of this 3D building in a video game to actually help people is amazing, and I wish it had been mentioned more than it ended up being.
Yeah. Everyone
The
mentioned how
fact
they
that's
gave
the
the game
reason.
free. That was the
Yeah,
big news of that. Ubisoft used it as a way to
get
support.
profit
Yeah.
or not profit, but get good PR.
Mhm.
And then the other one was the original Red Dead Redemption. Uh, Getting my dad of all people to pause as he walked by when I used to live at their house, and be actually enraptured by ranching because he's like city guy from Metairie, Louisiana, and
Mhm.
watching me like not rustle but like herd cattle and call them up and ride over the hills of amber waves of grain was like it actually changed something in him for a second. He was like, "What is that? That's amazing. What are you doing?" Little did he know that it was made by the same people that made GTA because he
Right.
said, "Man, I'm really glad that they make games that don't require you to kill people." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's totally not like that, Dad. I
Yeah.
swear."
But to be
It's
fair, is like it's crazy that the same company that does the most cynical, raunchiest games in GTA were able to do something so vivid and lived in and feel good in a way in really like Red Dead. Even though those games end up in tragedy, like all westerns, it's like just the worlds that they create that are completely removed of the rockstar cynical BS. Crazy, I can come from the same company.
you get some real beauty in those moments when they finally stop yelling at you with their preachy modes. Then you can actually get some really amazing stuff out of it. And yeah, I could probably go on and on about the
Same,
beauty of what games can do for people, but
and that's the beauty. It's like this, like that's as cynical as I can be with some of business decisions that happen in games. Like the way games have evolved to be so much for different people in different ways, in a way that finally has transcended what people used to think video games used to be, and how important they were to keep people sane in in the law during lockdown. How important that was for the social aspect of it. Games are now at a point where they're important. They're not something to be like, kind of like scoffed at. They're a real market that can make big bucks for the people that invest in them. They're good educational tools. They're good entertainment tools. It's like it's all about how you approach them, and I think that's what shows there. It's like it made me realize like, how intrinsically games have been for me for formation purposes, also in a way. Without games, I wouldn't have perfected my language
true.
because I'm a Spanish speaker native. That was my first language, and now I prefer English because many of the games that I play were in English.
Yeah.
The criticism that I read about games was in English. When I wanted to write reviews and all that, I did it in English. It was all because where it started. So
It's I I just love when we can actually break apart the cynicism and actually get to the true positive, not only potential, but actual results of what gaming has done. I mean, bringing people together from very far distances, just in this one last year alone, the ability that yeah, you can't go hang out with people or see them, but you can easily get on a party chat and you can hear those voices. That helped me so much for my mental health, being able to speak with all of my friends, even though they were all in their own houses and everyone was safe and away from all of the nastiness that we had to deal with.
Just as good as Skype.
Yeah. And better because you're not only doing using the one side of your brain to talk, but you can also do things with them in the
Okay,
world that you're running around in.
I'm such an idiot. I didn't even mention it. Just Dance, Ring Fit Adventure. They're great exercise.
I didn't
If
even think about that
yeah,
part.
think about that. It's like there's games you can use as exercise. A lot of people have exercise to Beat Saber.
Yeah.
A lot of people
Daily.
exercise with Ring Fit Adventure. Just
I
Dance.
did for a while and it actually gives you some real
Yeah,
results. It is it tricks me to running for like 40 minutes.
yeah. And not only that, like Just Dance, it
Oh
has
yeah.
workout modes where they track your calories burnt and all that. They set it up for you to as a
Yeah.
like I kind of like I mentioned, it's like the games are much more beyond just something that you play.
Mm.
They have to understand because they offer things for everyone. You just have to pick it and choose it and exploit it that way.
And I think that caps off what is one way that games can be used for education that I can even think of. So appreciate you indulging me on that one, Alejandro. I always like giving some extra thoughts on things that I
And
haven't
just with
thought
that,
of.
this I think this justifies even more why it should be a good idea for us to split the episode now into 2 episodes a week, just news and then just that. Because imagine, I think topics are something that deserve to be indulged with. That's
I
what makes it
agree.
interesting.
That's the fun part of it.
Yes,
Because
and
the
with
longer we have conversations, then you think about more things and then you
mhm,
spiral and it ends up being a good time.
exactly. And on that note, this is the end of this week's show. So thank you, Paul, for once again allowing me to indulge in this podcast nonsense with you.
It's always a
And
pleasure.
and we'll continue. Where can people find you?
As always, everyone, you can find me at Dork of Art on Twitter, also at Dork of Art on YouTube, and at Angel Sword 21 on Twitch, which I have one episode of Deathloop, as well as you at least have one episode, I think. Um, I'm hoping I can do something. I mean, Death Stranding is difficult to stream, so I don't know if I'm going to do that, but
Yeah,
maybe once Battlefield comes out, I'll do some other things as well.
yes.
So, where can they find you?
You can find me at twitch.tv/the Slayer Giant. My streams are also archived at our YouTube channel, XCape Media. You can find me at on Instagram at Alejandro Segovia 93. You can find me at Twitter at A_Dro You can find some of my written content at thecriticalcorner.com. And don't forget that the X button always, well, right now we're aiming to try to post on Thursdays and Fridays. Right now that we're changing some stuff with when we're gonna be splitting the show now, we will be aiming for Mondays and Wednesdays, probably. For like when the shows go live
Yeah.
for either news and our what we've been playing and topic sections. And they'll still remain in the same channel, same feeds. They're just gonna be updated more frequently. And
Different bat time, same bat channel.
yes. So Paul, it's been a pleasure, and I'll see you next week. And remember
Press X.
to play.
Good night, everybody. Adios.